and roll music to the... Hey, everybody, how ya doing? Jamming out to a little bit of Alvin Lee. So 10 years after. Anyway, how are you doing? It is Friday, and well, let's see. I think technically we have one more Friday left in this year, and new year, new decade. So welcome everyone. Hello, moderators. Hello, Twisted Isby. Happy holidays, Hanukkah, Christmas, whatever it is, Bonza, and who knows, however you celebrate the holidays, have fun at it and enjoy it. That's the idea. Don't come under stress and just relax. Speaking of that, I'll just speak that relaxing favor over all of us. Nothing missing, nothing broken. You know what I mean? The shirt says, I don't understand ignorance and I don't want to. Yeah, I don't. So how are y'all doing? How is everybody? What is that? Let me just see who's all here. Honey Ann, I haven't seen you before. Welcome. Hello, Susie Q. David Barry, how you doing, my friend? Robert, good to see you. Kenneth, Val, Pamela, think agape love always and forever. Peace. David, good to see you. Nina the Mystic, how are you doing, my dear? David Castle, hello. Great Scott, good to see you. Emerald Eagle, Earth Warrior, hello. Hello, Kent Cook, how are you doing? Source Frequency, love it, love it. Gary Rosenquist, good to see you, buddy. Lucky Stone, hey, there's nothing wrong with that, huh? Eye of the Maelstrom, how are you doing? And Trisco 33, Unknown Blues Girl Guitar. Hey, you ever want to come on the show and play? You got an open invite. T-Cat, how are you doing? B3, I am Nancy, good to see you. Ada, hello. Just Cruising, Divine Empress, Gary, hello. Man, a lot of people here. Far out. And it is, I'll tell you, you know, I will say one part of the, well, let me see. I don't know. There was about 10, 12 days that in December that were just, you know, energy was really weird. You know, mixed voices. And anyway, it's like you've reached Shangri-La, you know, we're there. It's got that kind of feeling to it. I don't know literally if we have, but hey, it's always good to think positive thoughts, isn't it? Far out. So I got a show today that I really think is going to mess with your head. And I think when you see this, you're going to get the idea that we really we don't realize, you know, it's kind of the idiom that, you know, the rat said, forget the cheese, just get me out of the trap. And because we live in an illusionary world, we say that here a lot because it's true. But when you begin to realize how much of an illusion, that's where it starts getting really weird. The Holographic Universe, David Talbot, great book. If you don't have it, read it. We might cover that here. It's a lengthy book, and that's why it makes it difficult to cover it in a manner that is worthy of it. But, you know, they say that the laws of physics prove that this is a construct. It's a simulation. And if we're in a simulation, then that means simulations can exist within simulations within simulations. You know, Trina, I love it. She the Russian Cupid dolls, you know, and it also lends to the whole credence of fractal consciousness. How many fractals can live within a construct, which I would call consciousness, breaking out. Our resident alchemist, Julianne Payne, hello, how are you doing? Hey, Joyce, how are you? Would show how that can be. And it is. It's weird, but, you know, and the thing about it is, When I used to do the psychedelics, when I was in a much more younger man's shoes, as Billy Joel would say, um, part of the experience I enjoyed was the fact that it opened up that flow of thought or perception of being able to exist in multiple fractals. And now I look back at that, been a perfect word for it, because that's what it is. I'll share something with you. Good friend of mine back then, John Scott. We dropped some Orange Sunshine together, and we started hitchhiking. And we hitchhiked. Those of you who live in Houston, Texas, we hitchhiked to the Galleria back in the day when it first opened. And so here we are, still about 4 hours from peaking, but doing pretty well at that. And we went into one of these Persian rug outlet stores. And it was so weird because we were walking in between the rugs. And when you're on psychedelics, wow, I mean, that just puts you into a whole different world. But the point is that when you learn to handle it, then thought becomes really interesting because you can see thought manifested so much quickly. I don't know why in the world I got off on that rabbit trail, but anyway, let's get back to the main path. You see, when you have a great memory, and I'm learning this, there's no reason if consciousness can be transmuted at the point of physical death, then that means consciousness was transmitted at the point of physical birth. Now, how developed that consciousness was, how deep that consciousness is, to each his own on that. But obviously, it can be and does transcend. So munch on that one a little while. As he grabs a cup of tea. There we go. Gotta love our trippy day. Well, there you go. I'm just telling the truth. And it was fun. I got to tell you, it really was fun. It was quite the experience. So anyway, let's continue. All right. So I've got something here that is going to show us just how much of things are not as they appear to be. And folks, it gets really strange. There we go. So the only one thing's really clear, things are not what they appear. Get ready for this one, folks. I think this one is going to be fun, maybe not, but it's going to show you. Well, I'll just let you make your opinion. Intelligence. It says, not because you think you know everything without questioning, but rather because you question everything you think you know. That's how it's done. All right. Little history lesson here, folks. In 1792, Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Jefferson's place of advertisement announced a Capitol architectural contest in a Philadelphia newspaper. The ad contained rules and requirements for the sizes and numbers of rooms and such. The judges of the competition were George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and the commissioners of the District of Columbia. The philosopher Jefferson, a classical educated man, like most of the founders, saw in temple designs like the Temple of the Sun, the Parthenon, and the Roman Pantheon, all symbolism of democracy, science, and philosophy resurrected. Jefferson, Washington, and the committee thought that the new Capitol building should symbolize a temple of liberty. in a secular sense. Entries were mostly Renaissance, Palladian, and classical revival style of that period. But the truly classical entries from a classical antiquity were the most liked by all. That classical antiquity is very important here. The committee took the symbolic nature of the capital seriously. For them, the design must symbolize the functions and themes of the capital. So if you are beginning to figure out, we're about to take a step right into the middle of what our reality is, and you're going to see for yourself just how much of an illusion we truly live under and in. So keep this in mind. So really what Jefferson had in mind was a place that would have been the combination of Athens, Rome, Egypt, Atlantis, all set into one grand place where intellectualism, spiritualism could abound in philosophy of both democracy, the rule of law, etc. Deep stuff. These guys were no novices by any means. According to the Library of Congress, the online exhibit, there is the conception and the building of the Capitol building, titled The Temple of Liberty. Thomas Jefferson was inspired by classical temple architecture for the pattern of the Capitol. A source of this was a print of the Pantheon in Claudette Antonio Jambert 1779 book called Les Edifices Antiques de Rome, which actually means the ancient edifices of Rome. The print called Elevation de la France actually it's the Parthenon in Rome, was done by Antonio Desgazes. I believe that is correct. Being classically educated and a son of enlightenment. Now, the term enlightenment was of the highest, it was a code word. That's all I can say. And those who were trained and educated in enlightenment, they were apart from the rest of the masses. You're going to see this. This is not surprising. Jefferson was well read regarding classical philosophers and cited them many times in his letters. A print of Robert Wood's 1753 book, The Ruins of Palmyra, impressed Jefferson for the Capitol's new east portico design. You can also see the prints of this in the Manhattan Rare Books. The print was Wood's conception, now get this, folks, of the Temple of the Sun, which is also the Temple of Bel, or the Temple of Baal, the god of the sky and the sun, the Father in the divine Trinity of the Sun God. The laurel with the crown of sun was the messenger of the sun. The agrobole was the moon. Thus the Capitol building was conceived. How many are you seeing the giants? How many are you seeing Og here? Yeah. You're going to look at the Capitol building in a much different light from here on out. It is a temple, ladies and gentlemen. It's not what you think. And we shall see. Now look at this. You see, that's the Jefferson Monument down on the very end. Folks, This is dedicated to the sun god, Baal. Now, it's not my words. I just read to you history. Did you know this year they erected the Arch of Baal on the Capitol? You can see that's the United States Capitol. We're going to see the goddess that adorns the Capitol. They're erecting these, and it's a traveling exhibit, so it says. But actually, it's much more than this. This is the actual, replica of the Arch of Baal. Why are they erecting it now in America? You want to tell me? Baal's name has been invoked. In fact, it is thought in some circles of thinkers that arches are actually doorways, portals. They can open up to other dimensions. You have your point of view. But here I want you to think. Baal worship, the crescent moon, the star, has been used in Baal worship for thousands and thousands of years. Baal literally means, it's not translated, it's a literally means Lord God. There's nothing new under the sun. Islam is the worship of Lord Baal. Christianity is the worship of Lord Baal. Judaism, Satanism, skull bones, you name them. Did you know that this worldwide exhibit going around, right now it's in the Vatican as well. It's in the Colosseum. They have erected the statue of Moloch. But in anticipation of this, the Temple of Baal and its exhibit will be erected in Times Square, London, and throughout the world. You didn't even know this was going on, did you? You see, I took a lot of flack about Baal, but when you're fishing and you start getting hits on your bait, you've got something. Now, this is going to get real close to home for all of us, particularly of us in the United States. You're going to realize how a mere human who may be elected to an office, Congress, Senate, whatever it is, once they come within the temple boundaries, and there's an outer court, they become under the influence of something that they had no idea existed. And many of them are up there, still do not. You see, America was created to be the seat of power for the gods. Not God, the gods. This is probably one of the most, how should we say, closely kept secret out in the open. And you're going to see how intense it gets. You see, folks, I watched a video yesterday that someone sent me, and the guy was spot on. You see, the House of Representatives, the chamber, it's a chamber. And once you enter into the sanctorium, this is a temple. This is not a place which you think it is. And the ignorance of the lawmakers that when they're elected into Congress, virtually 99% of them are completely ignorant of what happens to them. They can have any belief that they want, doesn't matter. Once they take the oath and once they put on the lapel pin, and there's other ritualistic things that are part of the swearing in, this is a temple. It's a temple of worship, not the type of worship that you have been taught. You see, there is a type of worship that is only known to the gods that speaks in a completely different language. And you're going to learn this a little bit here. This is the McClellan Plan. the original plan that today, which we see as the mall of the Capitol. Pay attention to what you're looking at here. This is ancient Masonic symbolism. This is Baal worship. This is the type of thing that the Egyptians, the Sumerians knew about, the Druids, the Celtics. It's nothing at all of what you have thought, because in the design, there was a master plan that was laid out. You see, what most of us have never taught in school and civics is that Washington is, in fact, the reincarnation of Zeus. Washington, go in, the folks, this is right out on the Capitol, and you're going to see it inside the Capitol. George Washington was, in fact, elevated to the position of God, of the gods. You'll see. See, for every seat of power for the gods, there must be an obelisk that has to be erected. That's why the earthquake of, when was that? 2015, I think, was so, people missed it. There's those of us who knew what that meant when the obelisk was cracked. An earthquake of the magnitude, folks, it did much more than what we were led to believe. This is the Supreme Court, the highest court of the land. They are, in fact, God. Maybe that they will say within the public openings that, they open to God. But most people do not study the architecture. They don't study the placement of the statutes. None of this is observed. So I'm going to help you out here. The U.S. Supreme Court building is a replica of a pagan temples. Although built long after the framing years, the architects were keenly aware of the strong classical foundations of the American Enlightenment and the U.S. Constitution. Keep this in mind because you're going to see this depicted in art. Comparing it with the architectural orders of buildings such as the Parthenon leaves no question as to its inspirational source. The representations of diverse legal, and intellectual currents presented in the Capitol are also seen in and on the Supreme Court buildings. Several of the friezes, inside and out, portray an array of lawmakers and lawgivers from history, Eastern and Western, that contributed to the evolution and formation of Western secular law. Over the eastern entrance is a frieze sculptured by Herman McNeil, which depicts three of the world's greatest lawgivers, Solon, Moses, and Confucius. In the courtroom, on the south wall, is a frieze of 18 famous lawgivers sculptured by Adolf Weinman. On the left of center, representing lawgivers before the current era, are Moses, Hammurabi, Moses, Solomon, Lacutus, Solon, Draco, Confucius, and Augustus. On the right, representing the current era, are Justin, Mohammed, Charlemagne, King John, St. Louis, Hugo, Gratius, William Blackstone, John Marshall, and Napoleon. Bet you didn't know that, did you? So as we begin to expand the view, we find out that sometimes it's not exactly what we have even thought to be led. The complexities of what we're talking about this is expressed again in gematria. geometrical shapes, all having their energy, etc. Now, in the United States, in our capital, it is adorned, the cap, by the goddess, which is called the goddess of liberty. Now, this goddess she has represented herself in every place the gods have made as their new temples. Athens, Egypt, Rome, Washington. She is quite the goddess. Now, I told you that you did not realize that George Washington is God. Here he is depicted looking down, and we'll look at this fresco more. This, if you ever go to Washington, D.C., look up into the Capitol. This is all based on polytheism. It takes on many different forms, but the one thing that you will find in the United States, we worship the god Mars. Mars is the god that you will see who is adorned. And let me just tell you something about these statues and how you not quite perceive this. You look at a different point of view and it suddenly becomes really weird. You see a statue, although carved, is carved with energy. And if you're carving a god, a goddess, there is energy that's going into this, because this statue, the statue that you will see, you will look upon this statue and marvel. That's a form of worship, even if you think it's casual. They're here, they're alive. You see, amongst the Enlightenment, they knew that the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights, even the Declaration of Independence, was given by the gods. Here you see the gods, and that is, I believe that's Mercury, is giving the word that you can see was given to the Israelites, and a different word, and you have to look at the symbology of the painting, is now being given to Thomas Jefferson. And I'm trying to think of the next guy behind him, but folks, this is America. I mean, do you really think that a bunch of dudes sweating in the middle of the hottest summer came up with these inspirations just in the middle of the night? There was something much more going on, and they have to tell the truth. They don't have to speak it. They just have to show that they told the truth. So here's the entrance to the U.S. Capitol building. Look who is, shall we say, guarding the entrance? Or should we say, who gets first respect? That's the pagan god Mars. We're going to talk about on the top of the portico. Gets weirder. This is the Statue of Freedom. She stands atop the dome in the United States Capitol building. This is the goddess Diana. She has formed in many different personifications over the millennia. Here is her Prados moment, for she reigns virtually undetected, but all give her reverence. If you study her dress, her sword, her throne, the stars that adorn her head, folks, this is a goddess. Don't think otherwise. All give homage to her. She stands in the center of the highest level of respect, of worship. As you can see, the pleat that holds her divine robe together. The symbology is everywhere. Here is one of the paintings that she was molded from. It's interesting, isn't it? And there she stands. This is her kingdom. Now, there are many gods in her kingdom, in this kingdom, but this is her kingdom. Again, all pay homage to her. Every lawmaker, every jurist, every tourist, they all must pass in front of her. She's ever watchful, ever diligent. America also worships Ceres. Ceres is in places that you would not think of. And in fact, the states worship Ceres. This adorns the capital of the state of Missouri. The goddess Ceres, there she is. Bet you folks living in Missouri didn't know that, did you? Well, go to Jefferson City and you shall see. In fact, you should begin to think about what each state has adorned on top of the capital. You see, your capital is your center of where the lawgivers come together. This is deep, folks. It's in the Kabbalic religion of Judaism, Islam, Christianity, Hindu. Doesn't matter what you label yourself, it's all the same. We begin to see again how these, how shall we say, statues, sculptures, they're constantly watching over that which is the highest. Zeus is well representative in Washington, D.C. When you begin to think about this, folks, this is not by coincidence. And when you begin to look around these buildings, you see the symbology everywhere. This is magic, folks. This is the type of power of the gods that confuse mortal men. Many of them, that's why so many politicians become corrupt. They can't handle the energy. This is an energy that's neither good nor bad. You have to understand that is human limitation of thinking. This is beyond that. These representatives, these icons, tell a story of a truth, but in a language most people are ignorant of. Because they got to have a new cell phone, we got to have the new iPhone. And, if I don't have a new pair of shoes, and they're so ignorant. But that's the way it's supposed to be. Good slaves are the ones that are most content, that don't cause problems. It's the ones that begin to ask questions that become the pain in the rears. You see, Washington was Zeus incarnated as flesh. This is Washington as God. Now, if it didn't mean something, it wouldn't be out there, folks. Again, the United States Capitol is a temple. If you've been to the Capitol, many of you have seen this. And I guarantee, I don't know what you thought, but if you didn't have the hidden knowledge, you would never known what you were really looking at. Now they'll tell you, well, this is an example of great, guess you could call it revolutionary work. Revolutionary. It's amazing, and people buy it lock, stock, and bagel. But again, this is the goddess Diana. Look what she's doing. There's her chariot. She has the book. Yeah. She keeps time. She keeps the record of what the gods are dictating to moral men, women as well. And as you go around, you begin to see some of the most bizarre symbols now. They don't quite make sense unless you know what you're looking at. Here is in the capital, Goddess Liberty. I want you to pay particular attention to what's on her right side. It's the serpent. The serpent is on a pedestal. If you look to her left, you see the eagle. Some say owl, but I think this is most likely the eagle. Nevertheless, it's representative, again, of power, whereas the serpent is wisdom. Amazing, is it not? Everywhere. Everywhere. When we begin to see what we call these edifices that we have erected, and we give them interpretations, we never understand their origins. Only the gods assume the large edifices. Yeah. God of war. They're everywhere. And if you look again in the Capitol Rotunda, you begin to see stories that are taking place that show divine beings interfering, bringing knowledge, war to the mortals. And those that are in the heavenly realm are the ones who are the founders of the gods for this new place. Here is the goddess Liberty. Notice the rainbow. It gets, it's amazing, folks. It can get to the point where you want to just say, I can't accept this. Here's the god of the war. This is Mars. And all around, this is Poseidon. This is Union Station. Notice the octopus. And you have to really take a look. These are the gods. Why did we resurrect them in this place that you could say is equivalent to Mount Olympus? Again, when you go into either chamber, this one here is the House of Representatives. This is a temple. This is not what any person thinks. This is the sanctum. And you can see the Roman colonnades. There is the goddess Liberty, the serpent, the eagle. Folks, it's very important the way things, when you set up a temple, rituals become very important, and what is adorned on the temple becomes of primary importance. These scenes are for a purpose. Again, this was in the very early days of the capital. Isn't the serpent interesting? Yeah, I may have lost a couple of thousand subscribers because they couldn't handle it. But, you can only sometimes spoon feed people so much. And when you begin to look at the other statutes and what they represent, these are deities, folks. These are demigods, male, female, all have longevity in man's history. This is Union Station. And those of you who've ever been through there, you're usually like I have been, rushed, but you never take the time to look around and start asking, why? Who are they guarding? Who are they looking over? This is the god Thales. You can see in one hand he holds lightning bolts, and the other, it looks to be a stone. But nevertheless, when you look at the goddess Liberty, you see, folks, this is what's so weird. She's everywhere. Throughout the Capitol building, she's everywhere. You can go downstairs, and this is where this is at. The god Mars, the god Poseidon, the god of fire, Anti, and the god of thunder, Baal. You can't make this stuff up. There's the god Jupiter. Look who he's holding in his hand. Yep, you figured it out. That's the goddess Liberty. Again, George Washington as Zeus, which is God. Here is the actual depiction of God as George Washington. Here he's writing the laws to give to man. Here's Romulus. All of them are represented. Washington, D.C. is a vortex where the gods play. Now, this chamber is very interesting, and I forget the guy's name. It's Crypto Thinker, or I can't think of it, but he did a great video on, if you understand, you see, folks, that's a temple. The blue carpet is the sea, because all of us are under maritime law. Did you know that? Anytime you see the President of the United States speak, you always see the gilded flag. Here, the flag is not gilded. When you see him, he's speaking because he's only president under maritime law. Now, this is a strange place. It has strange powers. As many of us have seen, it drives people nuts. The fascius is the thing that's really interesting. It's a bound bundle of wooden rods, sometimes including an axe, as you see, with its blade emerging. The fascius has its origins in the Etruscan civilization and was passed on to ancient Rome, where it symbolized a magistrate's power and jurisdiction. And you can see it's set within the temple. I mean, folks, and now you can begin to see the hidden message that's been right there in front of everybody. Folks, this goes back to ancient Egypt. It's a chamber, all right. That's the accuracy of what it is. What do chambers do? Think about that one. Particularly one where the invocation of these ancient deities stand watch. And everything, those three different levels of chair equal 12. There are 12 stars that adorn the top of the colonnades. It's mind-blowing. It's going to get even more mind-blowing here. Look what's coming to Washington, D.C. It's showing up. It will be, this statute will be in every state of the union. You want to tell me what's going on? You're going to get used to it. Every state of the union. Maybe we're seeing something much more at work here than any of us could ever imagine. Let me get out of here, folks. So there you go. I'm just going to read some of the comments. Someone says, get used to it, my ass. Listen, I know people think that the United States is a country dedicated to the Christian God. It is not. Well, I don't know. Depends on maybe what your theology is to what that God is. But nevertheless, hard to take, isn't it? I mean, I'm just looking at some of it. So, folks, there it is. Do with it what you want. Do your own research. But the fact of the matter is, it's been right there in front of us. Washington, D.C. is not dedicated to the Christian gods, not dedicated to a Jesus. It's dedicated to the gods. Zeus, Baal, boy, I could think Diana. I can think of Osiris. That's who actually, I believe, the goddess Liberty is Osiris. I really do. And I think that if we did our work, who knows, she may very well be Inanna, the goddess of the Sumerians who ruled in there. And this language, you see, the way that process works is a language most people can't handle. If you watch C-SPAN and watch what goes on in that chamber, you don't violate the laws there. There are harsh penalties for those who violate the laws of the gods. And, well, thank you, Regine. Thank you. Let me read what that's saying. And, the Washington, D.C. is not part of the United States at all. It's the District of Columbia, and that's why. It cannot be a part of the United States. These gods won't allow it. I mean, listen, that's why it's anyone who's I was a lobbyist at one time, and there's an energy that is palatable. And if you hook up to the right deity, it can ride your career straight to the top. I mean, Washington, D.C. is one of the most pagan cities I've ever been in. And the facade is just that. You think that this stands for God and country. Yeah, you're just not asking which God. And the founding fathers, even in their documents, the way that they wrote these things, it's very interesting. And again, when you use the term Lord God, that's Baal. When I discovered this about, I guess it was 4 years ago, when it really started hitting home, I got to tell you, I talked to my wife about it, and she said, she really thought I'd gone over the edge. But as you dig deeper and you begin to realize, and listen, the Arch of Baal that is now being sent to all these major cities around the world, folks, there's a reason for that. I didn't know that there was one. Well, thank you, Alexandra. That's very kind of you. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's interesting. It's hard to, again, if you believe in the patriarchal, monotheistic concept, it's really a very recent belief system. Man's original beliefs were, and always shall be, I believe, are polytheistic in nature. Yes. Cite the zero. Yep. God is the political power used to control and fear the society. It's exactly right. And again, here's something else, folks. A common citizen is not allowed in the sanctum. You will never be allowed to go down on the floor within the temple. No, no, no. You don't violate that. And the only time when there is even a relaxing of the protocol is particularly when you see the State of the Union or something like that. But that's very limited even then. So it tells you something. When the average constituent could never go down in the well of the chamber. Isn't that interesting? You go down in the well of the chamber. It's been right there in front of us the whole time, folks. All right. Well, this has been far out. I told you it's hard to accept, and everyone is welcome to your own interpretation. It's cool. I just do these. Wow, Kenneth, wow. Well, far out, Kenneth. That blows me away. That will go to good causes, Kenneth. Thank you. That's just amazing. Well, okay. Wow. That's affirmation of something, Kenneth. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'm blown away. So there you go. So, you can go and do your own PowerPoint presentation, but I think you'll find out the same thing. It's like you go, okay, all right, this stuff is getting too weird. I mean, and when you start getting into it, it gets weirder. You got to step back and go, all right, is really the rabbit down the rabbit hole? I mean, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole unless there really is a rabbit. I want to talk to that little white rabbit and say, what is going on? But he'll say, you know what? The mystery isn't down the rabbit hole. It's up above. Look around you. You've got Wonderland in what we're thinking is this highly cultural, civilized tapestry. When in reality, you're going, what? I'm telling you. Well, happy holidays to all of you. Again, Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, and all the rest of them. I'll be back on Monday, and, we're going to do all next week is going to be kind of a review week. Let's see. You know what? Side the zero, I think there is tremendous treasure. I think it's the kind of treasure that maybe I think, and just hear me out on this, if the Ark of the Covenant exists, it's in Washington, D.C. I know that sounds crazy. I think that, people just simply flip me off on that. But folks, there's a power source that is in that area. Is it something like the ark? I don't know, but I know it's tangible. I know that it is potential. There's something there, but anyway, who knows? That could be, maybe, who knows? I think they got something there. All right, folks, have yourself a great weekend. Enjoy it. Have fun. That's going to be the theme. Next week, we'll be doing kind of like the year in review and looking at some of the more special type moments that the year had. And we're going to have fun. So, all right, be good. And Dancer is right here. So she's saying, it's time to take me out, Daddy. All right, folks. Much love to you. Be good. Love yourselves. And people will find you much more lovable as well. Favor upon all of you, by the way. All right. Bye-bye.